Yeah, what I always liked about that whole album is that after a while there was a certain sound. I don't know if that maybe you're responsible for that, but there was always the bright amplified finger picking that he did on there, and then there was like a soft piano. I don't know if there was Rhodes or it was just
Rhodes,
an actual yeah.
and on Sailing it
That's
was
what influenced me. I'll have you know I liked that particular vibe that happened.
the ostinato on that. The that was played with acoustic guitar and piano, Rhodes, and then electric. So there were 4 instruments playing that. And then and that was really smoothed out and had that kind of dreamy thing,
Yeah,
because the Rhodes was a Rhodes that we had a little bit of phasing on. And then his guitar had a little bit of a phased kind of a sound going.
yeah.
But all those elements, and then the bass was just boom, boom, bow, boom. Just very sparse, simple, and it's just something there. And then the string thing, which I wrote, the strings, uh, that intro wasn't there. That string part happens in the chorus. And Chet Himes, who's unfortunately not with us anymore, he was the engineer of that record. And the reason why I used him, because I used John Guess and Tommy Vicari, was because he kind of was part of the package.
Mm.
Because Chris and him had a sound that they wanted to have. And Chet was the obvious guy because of just the way he engineered. And I loved it because it sounded really good. And it was for Chris, and it was his thing. It was part of his sound. So even though Chet was incredibly slow, and the band was incredibly slow, and I always used to going in and cutting a track, in 2 hours or less, and we would take a day or 2, sometimes 3. Chet was part of that thing, so we'd spend a lot of time on what the bass drum sounded like. So I'd spend a lot of downtime just with the drummer out there, getting a certain sound and stuff like that, and I'd just be going, oy. But I realized that was part of the whole thing. It was important.
I'm afraid to say you might have gotten fed up with me too. I'm a little slow when it comes.
No,
Maybe I am now, but yeah, I think I was always going for the not perfection, but just trying to get it right and not have to go back and redo it. That would always be painful to redo something. Yeah.
I would have to say that a lot of times when you're playing, that a track went by that the producer did not pick up, that was the track. And there's no amount of convincing you could tell them that was the track, because they were convinced that this is the track. But with Chris, I felt like when we really got it, that was the absolute best. There wasn't something that was living 2 or 3 takes earlier. It was that take. And that was when we stopped. We didn't go on, we stopped, because that was it.
Maybe flash forward to Grammy time. So when did you find out that you were going to get yourself all dressed up and go to that theater or whatever and
well,
do
yeah,
it?
Well, it was in New York, and my wife was she went with me, and it was really cool. And well, a lot of times you'll find out about the nominations. I think the summer before, something like that.
Uh-huh.
But we were up against Billy Joel and Barbra Streisand and Neil Diamond and all these different people. So we knew that the record, just because of having 6 singles, there would have to be respect from the Grammys based on that alone. But we had no idea that we were going to take all those different awards. So we went. And we're shocked. I mean, I was just shocked that one after another. And I ended up playing. Chris and I played on the stage. We played Sailing. It was just piano and him with his guitar and singing. It was the 2 of us. And I remember sitting there. When you're younger, you're a lot better. I mean, when you get older, your hands get a little bit funky, and they get a little bit sore, and you don't get the stretch or anything. But I felt real comfortable. It didn't bother me to be in front of all those people. Today it would, because I feel like my hands just can't do what they used to. But when they started calling off the fact that we were, getting this arrangement, vocal, song, all this kind of stuff, we were pretty excited. We were pretty excited about it.
That's
that was
great. Yeah, not only did you take home, because you were nominated for a bunch, and then you won 3, I think, right?
I won 3. He won 5.
He won 5.
Yeah.
And then, was it the same ceremony? Did you get that one for the Dove, or not the Dove? Excuse me. For the Builder, didn't you get an award for that?
Yeah, we had that year. I had 17 nominations between the Imperials.
Wow.
What you're talking about? Yeah, I had a lot of nominations.
Right, you produced the Imperials twice, but that first one, I think you were talking about. Yeah.
One More Song for You. Yeah. So there were a lot of nominations that year. So. It's funny, Kenny Loggins came up to me after Billy Joel's producer got Producer of the Year, and he said, "Bro," he said, "they got the wrong person." I said, no. I said, Phil is a great producer.
You mean Phil Ramone? Yeah. Oh, yeah.
He said he's a great producer. He says, but no, he said, you really deserved it this year. So I said, well, I appreciate you saying that. That makes me feel good, but I'll tell you, Phil Ramone knows what he's doing. So anyway.
Well, that's good. I spent a little extra time on that one because that was your big.
Yeah, and I don't know if you know about the solo.
Sailing, yeah.
On Sailing, the solo, when we got the cassette, it was nothing but just some kind of a lackluster, kind of weird chords that just kind of meandered. And then there was like some weird synthesizer that his keyboard player was playing. And so when we got to it, I said, man, we got to do something better than that. And so we laid a bed with different chords than what he did because they were kind of lame. But he still thought that we're going to end up putting some kind of a synthesizer thing across the chords.
Uh-huh.
And so when I went in and played, this is the first take, I went. And we go back to the. So I come in after that, and his keyboard player says, "That's it." And Chris is just going, "I don't know about that." I said, "Chris," I said, it's mathematical. It kind of goes with the vibe. And this is the one time that I kind of lobbied hard because I knew that namby-pamby synth thing that meant nothing was wrong. And so we sat and talked about it for 3 hours, and I'm going, I'm exhausted. I said, do whatever. I said, you can do whatever you want. I didn't get mad. I just said, dude, everybody in the room, the band, the engineer, everybody's saying that's it. So the night watchman guy comes through, and part of his responsibility was to empty the trash. So he comes in and he picks up Chris says, "Can I ask you a favor?" He says, "Sure." He says, "Would you listen to something for me?" So he plays the second chorus, and going into that, he says, "What do you think of that solo?" He says, "I love it." He said, "Okay, that's it."
Nice.
And we call that transient response, was what our term for that was. A transient came in and responded.
Oh, great.
And so
I love that.
So he said, well, that's the guy that's going to buy the record. And he loved it. So that's all, that's all he needed. And so that was the solo from then.
That was good input. Yeah. And you were playing that solo just as you were doing that. I don't know if this is the right term, but the second half or the second bar or the second half of that bar or whatever, that's what grabs you. No, not when you start the solo, but the second half of the solo is like what grabs you.
It just goes to another key that's basically kind of aping the first half, but it kind of changes key.
Yeah.
And then it's a split bar on the second bar. And so, and then it brings you back into the deal. But what I was going to tell you with the strings was Chet, I came in whenever we came in, and Chet had already been there, and he said, listen to this. So he lifted the strings from the chorus and put it out at the beginning, and then when the chord goes to the D, and then this comes out of it. I went, wow. And what I was surprised at, a lot of times that when a string section is in there, we had about a 28-piece string section, and they normally have a one-sided headphone. And a lot of them like to even take that one headphone halfway off their ear so they can hear tuning around them.
Right.
And I'm thinking, how come we don't hear any bleeding of any tracks or anything? It's because they listen to it so low. So it was really a blessing, because we might have had a problem with hearing the rhythm section.
Okay.
And what
so it's good.
heard.
You didn't want the bleed. Yeah, you wanted to make sure that everything was separate.
Yeah. And it was from that where he goes, say, sorry.
That's okay.
Takes me away to where and this is the 2, 3. It's those changes right there, that bar where you want to take me, where whatever it is. And that's where he lifted it. So the drums are playing and there's a vocal that he's singing over that. So there's the chances of having that bleed through are very good, but it was completely clean. There was absolutely nothing. So he was able to take that da 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 ba da 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 da, and then it comes out of it. So the whole thing was kind of, one of the first calls I got was from Burt Bacharach. One of the first calls. He said, Michael, he said, I want you to know Sailing just sends me to the moon. He says, I cannot believe how good of a record that is. And I went, whoa, from Burt Bacharach. It was amazing.
Yeah.
And then John Lennon of the Beatles told his engineer that he thought that Sailing was the best produced record he's ever heard in his life. And that got back to him. So there was a thing that happened specifically with that record that catapulted the album to a certain place that it would have never been without that particular song. It went from like a 4 million selling record to 17 million selling record.
Holy mackerel.
Yeah, over time.
Sure.
And it was that track that took a pop singer from one place and sent it to another place, because the reaction, even when I hear it on the radio, there's something about it that makes you just want to lay back on a beach and just kind of look at with your eyes closed and just have the sun beat on you and feel the sea breeze. And I think that's what, I don't think that's necessarily the song, but if you think Sailing and Yacht Rock, don't you kind of connect those two?
I think so. It's a natural connection.
I don't like the term yacht rock, but I can't understand how Sailing wouldn't be the song that would make someone go, "That's yacht rock."
Yeah, somebody coined it, and now it sticks, and so we have to deal with it. But
or whatever.
Yeah, if that's what got people to like new generations to start getting into it, that's a nice thing too.
Yeah.
But just a note from the string section that you were talking about, like I don't have the stems for that, but you were talking about the separation of the track sound, and I mean, you could pull one of those. Just listening to it now, you can't take away anything. They all have to be playing in unison. Otherwise, you take away that string section, it's missing a little bit of the heart.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So you did.
Chris flipped out when he heard that. He started crying, actually. So
and he came back for more with the other albums.
He was so moved by it, because you got to think of a young artist like him. That's a kid from Austin, and he's in this thing, and the tracks are growing. It happens to all of them. I mean, except for the veterans. When you're in with a veteran, it's kind of. But when you're in with a new artist and they see things grow, they get very moved by it.
This is a guy that almost didn't want to work with you until he found out what your pedigree was. So that's kind of nice. That's just a great story. I'm glad that you told it through your keys and through your words. I promise the other things I want to talk to you, I'll go faster with that one, but I wanted to concentrate on that one because that got you the Grammys and probably it was a good springboard probably.
Yeah, it got me some serious gigs because of that. Serious. Yeah.